While I wasn't the best of Christians, I've always believed in God. You wouldn't see me in church every Sunday, but I would make a good attempt to go during Easter and Christmas Mass. On some Wednesdays every couple of years, you would even see me with a piece of ash on my face. That was, of course, before that drunk driver decided that my Honda looked like it needed to be compressed to half its size. I don't remember much about the accident itself, or my subsequent stay in the hospital. But this story isn't about that. This story is about what I saw when I was dead for 6 minutes. 1 minute I was driving down Roosevelt Avenue, minding my own business, and waiting for the light to turn green. The next moment, I felt a huge shift in weight and everything went black. When I saw the light at the end of a dark tunnel, I guessed what had happened to me. I had died. I knew I was a good person. I treated my family kindly. My many years on this earth had taught me that people were essentially good. I wasn't afraid to go into the white light, despite the fact that I was leaving my life behind me, because I knew that I would see them soon enough. So I went into the light. The next thing I knew, I had a physical body. I could feel a light coolness on my skin, and the soft fabric of a comfortable loose shirt and pants. The small white dots and brown moles that had littered my forearms from long days of physical labor were gone, and my skin felt as smooth as a baby's bottom. If I could look in a mirror, I would probably see a version of myself much younger than the 44-year-old version I currently was. "You done admiring the new duds?" The voice surprised me. It sounded too normal. "Sorry, it's just a lot to get used to," I said to the voice that I couldn't place. "Wait a minute. Where the hell are you?" "Here." The voice was coming from my right, and my eyes adjusted to the point that I could make out a silhouette against the light that surrounded me. The light seemed to die down a bit, and I could finally make out the silhouette. Like me, he was in a loose-fitting white t-shirt and white pants, and there was something weird about his hair. "Can you hear me now?" he said. What? I could hear him the whole time. Why was he asking me if I could hear him? Sorry, bad joke. My social skills are a bit rusty. I thought for a second before finally placing why he had asked that. Are you quoting that Verizon commercial from a decade ago? My vision cleared enough to find out the weird thing I noticed about his hair. He had a dark purple faux hawk. He sighed. And again, I fail at being funny. Has it really been a decade? On top of the faux hawk, he also had a face piercing. If he hadn't been wearing the same loose white clothing I was, he would be at home at a Fall Out Boys concert, circa 2005. It was 2008 last time I checked. God damn, you'll realize after being here a while that time doesn't mean much of anything here. Heaven? The emo kid barked a quick laugh. Yeah, heaven. I looked around in every direction. As far as I could see, it was only endless whiteness, with nothing in visual distance beside myself and... What's your name? I asked the emo kid. Daniel. Alright, Daniel. Yup, my eyes were fully adjusted and there definitely was nothing. If this is heaven, then where the hell is everything? He looked at me in silence for a second. I'm not the only one making bad jokes right now, apparently, he said. I took in a deep breath to calm myself before I yelled at what I presumed was some sort of angel, or psycho pomp, or whatever the hell this kid was supposed to be. Is heaven really standing around with you in a white nothingness for all eternity? Daniel looked at me sadly. No, it's not. I just wanted to spend as much time away as possible. Daniel wanted to spend as much time away as possible from heaven. Why? I asked the one question I had stirring in my brain. He looked off into the blank distance in silence before answering. I guess you have to find out sooner or later. I was about to ask what the hell he was talking about when I felt a sudden shifting. That stomach-dropping feeling of sitting on a roller coaster as it drops from 100 feet. And there was suddenly a gate in front of us. White pillars reached into the air far enough that I could see the top. Between the pillars were bright walls of what looked like solid sheets of marble that extended far into the heavens. What the hell just happened? I almost fell over from the sudden shift of location and the appearance of vertigo-inducing walls where nothing had existed before. That, he motioned towards the wall in a defeated gesture, is where we're going, unfortunately. Daniel? I noticed a brighter light coming from the top of the wall and pointed towards it. What's that light? He looked up at where I was pointing. Don't look directly at it unless you want a blinding headache. I stared as the light grew brighter and brighter. It was getting just close enough that I could see a pair of wings, somewhere in the bright shining light of its core. There was another pair behind the first, and another somewhere closer to its leg. Its head looked like the head of a lion. No, wait. It was an ox head, but it had a beak and a human mouth. Don't be afraid. A voice boomed out from the shining light that grew ever closer. Its face had been confusing enough. Trying to place its exact features was beginning to make my brain hurt. The booming voice only added to the madness that was already going on inside my head, as my mind tried to reconcile something with 4 faces and 17 pairs of wings. 14, 12, look away, I heard a small voice say to my right. It was hard to think. Where was I again? What was I looking at? Did this thing really have the head of... I felt my head jerk and I was suddenly facing the ground. My mental faculties coming back in a sudden tidal wave. I'm sorry, servant. He doesn't know yet how things work here. I'm his escort through these 3 gates, and we only wish to pass. Daniel said from directly beside me. I could feel the heat of the light shining off the angel, for that's what it must be, directly in front of me. I didn't know before this moment that light could have an intent, but this one somehow did. I could feel it. Measuring would be the best word. Me, as I stood in front of it. The light shone through me, illuminating all the airs of my life. A 20-year marriage down the drain because of a drunken one-night stand. A failure to keep in touch with old friends. Learning one of those friends had died third hand 3 years afterwards. Of course, guide. The voice boomed, shaking the essence of what I was made of. You may pass. I felt the light move and decided to look up. It was already drifting upwards and out of sight, above the sheer walls that dominated the field of vision. Come on. I felt a pull and started stepping towards the wall. We need to get inside. Just stop. I yelled and pulled my hand away from Daniel's grasp. Tell me what the hell is going on. What the hell was that? How did it have so many heads? And it's letting us pass through? Aren't we already here? Haven't we already been judged by God? Daniel looked at me. There was something in his eye that I hadn't seen before. Sadness, yes. Resentment, maybe. This time though, there was one clear emotion on his face. Fear. Fear as he looked up at the walls and the things that stood guard on it. Those are angels. If you're lucky, you won't see many of them. When I was alive, I thought the Bible was bull, and most of it is. One of the things it got right was how they looked. Of all the goddamn things for it to get right, it had to describe them correctly as those mind-bleeding things. Now we really need to get inside before one of them comes back. I stared at Daniel. And why do we need to do that, Daniel? You don't get it yet? These aren't the walls of paradise you were taught in Sunday school. These are the walls of a prison. And the angels aren't servants of God. They're guards. Now, Daniel continued, let's get inside before another one comes down to check on us. Daniel started walking towards the wall before I could muster any kind of response to his words. If the angels were guards, what the hell were they guarding? The alabaster white wall was just about in front of us. Daniel showed no signs of stopping as he continued walking towards what looked like a solid marble pillar, 6 feet across. How are we supposed to pass? My question was interrupted as the base of the unimaginably large pillar silently lifted itself up just enough for the both of us to pass under it. Daniel didn't stop and walk through the newly created space like he had done it 1,000 times. That pillar has to weigh as much as a skyscraper. How did it lift up with no sound? I asked my guide. It's a bit pointless to ask how anything is done here. The only thing you'll get is speculation from the other people here, or because it is willed from the winged peanut gallery. Now try not to look too amazed, he said as an answer. I don't know. My sentence was cut off for the second time, in as many minutes as we stepped from under the raised pillar onto a shining silver city. I'm not prone to exaggerations, so I hope you take this with all of the accurateness I can muster. It was an entire city made of silver. Tall pointed spires that gleamed brighter than any Las Vegas light show, stretched out of sight and into the infinite heavens that were somehow clear of any obstructions and impossible to see. There were a number of smaller buildings as well. Single-story square buildings that sat in the shadows of the impossibly tall spires, but still shone with the ever-present light that permeated every part of this place. 2- and 3-story perfectly round buildings were placed in the open spaces between the spires. These rounded buildings glowed with a blue hue that seemed to be the only color in this place besides Daniel's dark purple hair. Seeing a color outside of the pure light made me think of something. Daniel, where is everyone? He pointed towards the base of one of the tall spires. If you're unlucky enough to be stuck in the first heaven, then one of the shiny ones take you into a spire. I took another look at the spire and saw a small opening at the bottom. I wouldn't have been able to see it if Daniel hadn't literally pointed at it. The opening was seamless, showing no signs of machining or molding for it at all. It was almost like the entire spire had been melted into a single mold and cast as one solid piece. Daniel continued, "You're one of the lucky ones though, and get good old me instead. Welcome to the Silver City." He held out his hands in a mock greeting. Whatever else I had to say about Daniel, he seemed to be able to exude sarcasm without uttering a single word. You didn't answer my question. That's because I was avoiding it. I stared at him. He could probably see my annoyance, because he sighed and continued. Despite how this place looks, it's pretty much empty. anyone still around is either in the second or third heaven. Still around? Daniel looked up towards one of the spires in silence for a long moment, before saying, "You'll see." I was getting really tired of these cryptic messages. I've been dead for what felt like an eternity, and we've barely gone 10 feet into the Silver City. There was no one else here and nothing to look at besides buildings that defied definition. I was getting ready to start yelling again, maybe try to get one of the angels' attention, before I noticed something come off of one of the round 3-story buildings. A ball of blue light split off from the surface of the building, followed by a second, then a third. They took their sweet time, Daniel said as the blue lights approached. Unlike the massive glowing monstrosity that greeted us at the wall, these things were about the size of paperweights. "What are they?" I asked as the 3 balls orbited around my head. The glow had dimmed down to a soft fuzz that didn't hurt my eyes. Cherubs. I stared at the tiny blue orbs. They didn't have any defining features I could pick out. Cherubs, the tiny flying babies from all those Renaissance paintings? Daniel laughed quietly. Another thing everyone gets wrong from this place. He pointed at one of the cherubs as it passed my vision, and around to the side of my head. Cherubs are the lowest of the angels. They don't do much besides sit in those round buildings, hang around people, and cast judgment. These things are judging me right now? I looked at another blue orb suspiciously as it floated into my vision from the left. Judgment with a capital J. Don't worry about it too much. It's mostly a formality at this point. If there was anything you needed to worry about, it was the seraphim that cast judgment upon you at the gate. It clicked in my head. The flashes of random images. When that thing bored into my soul, I was receiving judgment. Would they find me worthy? Would I go into one of the spires despite Daniel's reassurance? One of the little blue balls stopped directly in front of me. After a second of where I felt fear, the little cherub bobbed up and down in the air. The other 2 stopped their orbit around my head and appeared next to the first one. The first one bobbed, followed by the other 2 copying the first, then flying off towards the building they had come from. The one that stopped its orbit first took a position at the top right of my vision and remained there. "That's a good sign," Daniel said as he watched the other 2 reunite with the shiny blue building they had come from. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "You said before that they were guards. What exactly are they guarding?" Daniel turned his head to look at the wall behind us. "Not here. I'll tell you once we get past the second gate." Without any indication, he started walking, heading in a direction towards some unseen destination, between one of the spires and a glowing cherub den. After passing the glowing round building, I could finally see where our destination seemed to be. Just past one of the immense spires, there was another wall, just like the one that surrounded the Silver City. It appeared to be made of sheer white marble. Unlike the hulking thing 1,000 feet behind us, it appeared to only be about 100 feet tall. When I was alive, I would never describe anything like that as small. But apparently death does some strange things to your perceptions. The unfortunate thing about this wall, however, was the presence of what Daniel had called the seraphim, sitting on top of the pillars that was the only breaks in the sheer whiteness, just like the ones that had appeared to us at the gate. These ones shined with a white light that was blinding to look upon. Daniel's words earlier did not go unheeded, and I made sure not to look directly at the thing, lest my mind break and my soul be torn asunder. or whatever the hell had happened at the front gate. The cherub that had been at my side just a minute ago flew towards the nearest pillars, to the bright maddening light of the seraphim. When the white of the seraphim subsumed the blue of the cherub, Daniel turned his head with a worried look on his face. "Be careful what you say from now on. That little blue bastard is listening, and watching everything you say and do." I interrupted him. "What? What shouldn't I—" "Stop!" Daniel shouted, then flinched as he looked up at the top of the wall before continuing. "You need to listen to me. That thing is not your friend. Think of it as a listening device. If you say something wrong, do something wrong, it'll fly to the nearest seraphim." I looked up and caught sight of a blue light detaching itself from the much brighter white. "And you do not want to catch their attention," Daniel said in a quiet voice, just before the blue light took its place to the side of my head. The seraphim the cherub had gone to grew in size, a bright light stretching forever into the horizon. Before I could speak, before I could even think about what was happening, a voice boomed from the pillar, in a voice that would have shaken a mountain. "Judgment has been cast, and you have been deemed worthy to enter the second heaven," the infinite light said before it grew brighter and brighter. In another moment, everything went white. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. It means a lot. If you enjoyed the story and want a part 2 to "I was dead for 6 minutes and saw heaven, I would rather go to hell," then be sure to leave a like and a comment on the video, letting me know.